Hey guys, in the last video we set up our bootstrap layout and we also created our model, our entity for our to-do list. Alright, so what I want to do now is we want to work on fetching data from the database. Alright, in the last video we also added a couple to-dos through phpMyAdmin. So what we're going to do now is we're going to open up our controller, to-do controller. And in order to use the entity or the model, we have to include it up here. So we're going to go here and we're going to say use app bundle / entity / to do. All right. And then in the index, or I'm sorry, the list action, that's where we want to fetch the to-dos. So let's go here and let's say to-dos. Oops. To-dos is going to equal, and then we want to say this. We're going to use doctrine, so we're going to say get doctrine. And we want to add on to that, say get repository. And then in there we need to pass in app bundle to do, and then we just want to say find all, okay, because we want to grab all the to-dos. Alright, so that's going to put it in this variable, and then what we need to do is we need to pass it into our view. So for the second parameter here, we're going to pass in an array, and we want to pass in to-dos, and that's going to come from the to-dos variable. Alright, so let's go ahead and save that. Now we're going to open up our to-do index, which is just a static table at the moment. And what we're going to want to do is go down to the table row, and right above that tr, we're going to use our twig syntax, and we're going to use a for loop. So we're going to say for to do in to-dos. Alright, and then down here after the closing tr tag, we're going to put in our end for. Alright, now while inside of this loop we should be able to access the properties. So we want the ID. So to get that, I'm going to go like that and say to do .id. Okay, and then we'll need the name. To do.name. And let's also do the due date. Alright. And then we need the ID for the links as well. So let's copy that, put that there, there, and there. Alright, let's reload. Okay, method due date for object does not exist. Alright, so this is happening because we're treating the date like a string, and it's not. So what we need to do is go right here, and we're going to put in a pipe character, and then we're going to say date, and then we need to format it. So we're going to format it with F, lowercase j, y, and you can format this however you want. If you go to php.org, you can see the different ways to format dates. And we want I and A. Alright, so let's try that out. No, that didn't work either. It looks right. Let's make sure due date is there. Due date, it's a date time. Alright, let's check the entity file real quick. Alright, so if we go down, oh, okay. So it's due date like that. And then we should have getters and setters. Alright, so let's try that. Let's try changing that. Get rid of the underscore. Oops. Let's try that out. There we go. Awesome. Alright, so we got our latest to-dos. It's getting the names. It's showing us the due dates, and they're formatted nicely. So that's that. Alright, so now what we want to do is we want to be able to add to-dos through the application. So like I said before, most of the work for creating a form goes in the controller. So we're going to go to this create action. Alright, so let's push this down a little bit. Alright, and then what we're going to do is we're going to say to do equals new to do. Alright, and then form is going to equal this, and then we're going to use this create form builder, and we want to pass in to do. Okay, now we're going to add to this each field, so it's going to say add, and this is going to be the name, and then we're going to say text type, text type class, and then the next parameter is going to be an array, and we want to include our attributes, alright, which is going to be another array. Let me make this a little wider. So for attributes, we want to provide a class. We're using Bootstrap, so we want it to look good, so we're going to add the class of form control, and we're also going to add a margin bottom to each field, so style, and we'll say margin bottom, and let's do 15 pixels. Alright, so that's the basic syntax for a form field. So let's copy this, paste that in. Okay, the next field is going to be the category, so we want to change this, and I think that's it as far as the category. Okay, next is going to be the description. So we're going to change this to description, like that, and this is going to be a text area, so we just want to say text area type. Alright, then we have the priority. Paste that in, and we'll change that to priority. Actually, you know what? This is going to be a select list, so instead of text type, we're going to choose choice type. Alright, and then for the, let's see, the array here, for the first field, let's say choices, and that's going to be an array. Okay, so in here, let's say low, which will be low. Then we'll do normal. And high. Okay, so hopefully that works. Then we want our due date. Okay, I'm going to paste that in. I'm going to change that to, I believe We'll try it with the underscore. I should have just named the table. I should have used camel case for the table, but it's fine. So this is going to be a date time type. And then everything else I believe can be the same. So then at the very bottom here, we want to say get form. Alright, and then under that we're going to say form handle request and pass in the request object. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to test to see if the form is actually submitted or not. So to do that, we can use an if statement, and we're going to say if form is submitted, and we want to make sure it's valid. So form is valid, then we can do whatever. Let's see. And if it's not, then it's just going to render the form, the create form, or I should say the create view. But before we go on, let's just test it out. So if it's submitted, we're just going to do a die, and we'll say submitted. All right. So let's go ahead and save that. Go to add to do. Okay. So could not load type app bundle text type. Really? Oh, that's right. We need to include that up here. And that's one thing about Symfony is you need to include a lot of different things for different features. So let's say use Symfony. You have to do this with every type you use. So component slash form slash extension. Then we want to say slash core slash type, and then we want text type. Alright, we want to do that same thing for the other types as well. So let's copy that. Okay, so we got text type, then we're going to need text area type. We're going to need date time type. And choice type. Alright, so let's try that. Okay, so it's not showing because we didn't add it to the view. So we need to go to our create view and just add a couple lines in. Where is it? Alright, so create view, let's put in a heading. Okay. And then all we have to do here, we use our twig syntax, and we say form underscore start, and then we just pass in form. Okay, and let me just copy that. Okay, and then the middle one is going to be form widget. And then the last one will be form end. And that's it. Alright, variable form does not exist. Oh, okay, so we need to pass in the form in the controller. So you'll see here we're rendering the view, but we're not passing in this form variable. So let's add an array. And then we're just going to say form and form. An exception has been thrown during the rendering of a template. Must be an instance of Symfony form. Huh. oh, we don't pass in the form itself, we pass in the create view method. So we just have to add on to that, create view. Alright, so there we go. Now we have our form, and we're missing a submit button. Alright, and then this due date here doesn't look too well with the form control class, so let's go remove that. So right here, I'm just going to move the hyphen. Alright, and then we need our submit button. So before we do that, let's include that type as well. Okay, so we're going to change that to submit type. Alright, and then let's copy the name, and we'll put that right here. Alright, and that's going to be the submit type. And let's call it save. And we're going to want to give it a label, so we'll go right here and say label create post, not post, to do. And let's see, let's change the class. Change that to BTN primary. Alright, let's take a look at that. Okay, so there's our button. Alright, so let's just test it out. Submitted. Great. Okay, so we know that that's working. Now to get the data, let's get rid of that. Alright, so to get the data, we're going to put them into variables. So let's say name equals form, and then we can pass in name, and then we want to point to get data. Just like that. That's how we can get the field info. So let's copy that and paste that in, and this will be category, and this one, oops, we want to change this as well. Then we get description, okay, then we get priority, okay, we also want our due date. Okay, and for, let's see, for the create date, we can do that as well. Let's set a variable called now, and we're going to set it to new date time, and we'll pass in now. Alright, and then what we need to do is we need our setters. So we're going to say to do set name, and we'll pass in name. Okay, so we got to do that for all these fields. So we got set name, we got set category, and we got set description. Remember, we saw all these inside the entity file. Oops. Set priority. And let's see, set due date. And we also want set create date, and we're going to set that to now. Alright, so after we do that, we're going to want to say em equals this get doctrine get manager, which looks a little odd, but that's how they do it. And then we're going to say em persist. We're going to persist the data to the database. Okay, we just want to pass in our to-do. And then we just want to flush. So we'll say em flush. And finally, before we redirect, we're going to want to set a message. So to do that, we're going to say this add flash. And then in here, let's say notice, and the message will just say to do added. Alright, and then finally we want to redirect. So return this, and we're going to do redirect to route. And we can put the name in here, which will be to do list. Alright, and that should do it. So let's save it. And let's go back to our form. And for name, let's say call client. Category will be work, which we could make a drop down. And then description. Normal date, say January 28th, time, say 10 o'clock. There we go. Call client. Alright, so that worked good. So I'm going to stop the video here now that we can add to-dos, and in the next video we're going to want to be able to edit them and then finally be able to delete them. Alright, so I'll